You're watching InDesign Basic Training, and in this video we're going to cover text wrap. Now, what is text wrap? If I have an image or some object on my page and I want the text to literally wrap around my object and not go underneath the object itself, then that is considered text wrap. There's a few controls that I want to show you today, and you'll see that in this example you don't typically have to have an image that you wrap around. This one happens to be a quote inside of a box. There are a couple of other ways that we can put an image or an object on the stage, and this is another example where I've got an unusual shape that the text is wrapping around that actual shape rather than around the bounding box. Now, if you've ever worked with Photoshop and you wanted to drop out the background in a picture and bring it into InDesign like I have, then there's a function for that. If you've worked in Photoshop and you have worked with paths, if you outline an object in an illustration or a photo and you want to isolate that, you could save the path, and InDesign integrates very well with Photoshop. It will recognize that you have saved a particular path in the Photoshop file. Now, to find that, if you place your picture in a picture frame, then you want to go to the Object drop-down menu, and what we're looking for, okay, is the clipping path. And then you select Options, and here I already have the setting for the type. Now you can go with none, and this is what I typically, when I bring that illustration in to the picture box, it looks like this. It already had a background, but I wanted to show the pencils. So in Photoshop I created a path and saved it in the Paths panel, and I named it. And so here in InDesign, when I placed it and go to the clipping path, it allows me to choose Photoshop path. I want to use the path that I created in Photoshop that resides within the picture I placed into my picture frame. So we're going to select that, and you can see here what's the name of the path. Well, in Photoshop I named it pencils, and you'll see that it looks like anchor points. Yeah, it's the exact path that I created in Photoshop, and you can see here the little anchor points. In InDesign, we could go back and use the direct selection tool, and we can even make changes to this right here and use the Photoshop path. It's not going to hurt the Photoshop picture. Here in InDesign, it's just utilizing it and bringing that information into the mix. Okay, so I'm going to cancel that out. Another way to use InDesign, the text wrap, well, typically is a picture, and you can see here I've got a picture that the text is wrapping around one side. It's in the middle of two columns, and then the column is wrapping around the other side. Okay, so let's see, what are our controls? I've got an example set up here as some Greeked in text, the placeholder text, and a typical picture. And the picture is just overlapping on, as if it's on the top of the stack, which it is. And if I wanted to place that and have the beginning of this article wrap around it, what you do need to make sure of is that you don't have just a very small amount to wrap around. In other words, this column is a certain width, and if my picture, if I make it so that I only have a small amount, then I've got little tiny bits and pieces of words, and there's not enough to wrap around. You might as well not wrap around it. Okay, so watch out for that, not too much for not wrapping it around. You have to have enough area to wrap around. So I'm going to make that so that I've got about halfway across my my column here. Okay, so it's very simple. The text wrap panel, and if you don't see that panel, of course, go into Window, Text Wrap, and the controls for it are right here at the top. The first ones, we have some choices between how we want that to wrap around, okay? And typically right now there's no text wrap. So it's just a matter of clicking these little icons, and we'll take a look at each one. The wrapping around the bounding box, okay, so that'll move the text over. If we have an unusual shape, we wrap around the object. We could jump over the object and we could shove the text to the next column. So what does that look like? Here we've got a typical picture, and we want to wrap around the bounding box, selecting the object that we want the text to go around. I click on that, and automatically now we can see that drop cap right here, so that we started the article with. So now there's nothing underneath it, and if I move this picture, yeah, my text is going to follow it. It's just going to be kind of almost like adhering itself to it, because I don't have any special controls on it yet to create a margin. We'll get to that. Now, wrap around object shape, I'm going to save that for after I show you these other controls, because it has to do with the shape of the frame, or the shape of the picture, the image, and we want to wrap around it very specifically. People ask me that all the time. How can I wrap it tightly around an unusual shape? So we'll get there. Jump the object. Okay, that means that wherever I place this, after the line that it's placed, then it does not fill any of that space and gets shoved down underneath. Okay. The last one is jump to next column, and that shoves all of the text from the column that the picture is in into the next column, and the text flows from there. Okay, so what if I want to wrap around my shape? Well, currently this doesn't make sense because my shape is actually a rectangle, and it does the same thing with the bounding box, a rectangular shape. So if I really want to go around a shape, let's convert this, just to make a point, this object. You go to the object drop-down menu, and you could convert the shape. I don't have that, the picture actually selected. There we go. You need to select the frame itself. So under Object, Convert Shape, instead of a rectangle, let's try ellipse, all right? And I'm going to kind of bring that in a little bit, okay? So now it is wrapping around the object shape, but look, the text always tries to fill whatever empty space, and so this looks fractioned or fractured, and I don't like the jump between here, okay? So typically where you place an unusual shape does matter. I don't usually place it on the edge, okay? Sometimes it's better off, or many times over, it's better off in between some columns where you have the wrap around one side and then the other, okay? So how do I get it so that it looks better? Currently, the text is touching it, and so that's a matter of going to Inset. Now, if I were to wrap around the bounding box on this picture, okay, then I would be able to control each and every offset, which means offset is pushing the text away further from its bounding box or its object shape. All right, so having that make all the settings the same, you have to click the little chain link right here, and if you want to have everything the same, then we click and it pushes that text out, top, bottom, side. Now if you have too much going on here, like underneath here, this is pushing it way down. I've got a lot of space. So I uncheck the chain and I lower the size of my text wrap offset, and so that looks a lot more natural. So it's up to you for that. Now, with regards to a shape, we only have control over one offset, which goes all the way around the object, and so pushing it out a certain distance all the way around, then you only have control over one, pushing it out. Okay, and so let's see what that looks like. Pretty nice so far. Let's see what the whole thing looks like here, my article. Okay, last thing for text wrap, your options. You can hide your options. There's only a few of them. And you could have wrap options. You could just do the right-hand side. Okay, clicking on the object, right-hand side or the left, and so on. We usually do both right and left sides. There may be some instances where you need to do towards the spine or away from the spine, or right or left. And so you can have that much control over it. Okay, that's text wrap, and in the next videos we'll do some more basic training.